The moment enemy forces surrounded them, Vikings uncovered what the ice was hiding. You stand at the edge of the frozen fjord, your breath forming thick clouds in the bitter Arctic air, and you realize with a cold certainty that matches the temperature around you that your small expedition has walked into a trap. The rival clan's warriors emerge from behind ice formations like shadows gaining substance, their weapons catching the pale winter light. You are outnumbered, outflanked, and impossibly far from home. Yet as your hand tightens around the axe at your belt, you notice something strange beneath your feet. The ice is speaking, creaking with a voice that sounds almost like invitation. This discovery, hidden for generations beneath layers of frozen time, will change everything about how you understand survival in this unforgiving land. Your name is Erik, and you lead a party of 12 Norse explorers on a trading mission that has gone terribly wrong. The year is 987, deep in the Viking Age, when expeditions into the far northern territories carried both promise and peril in equal measure. You left your settlement 3 weeks ago with goods to trade, furs and dried fish and carved bone tools, hoping to establish new connections with distant communities rumored to exist beyond the northern ice. The journey proceeded well at first, following coastal routes your people had traveled for generations. Then the weather shifted, forcing your group inland across frozen terrain where landmarks disappeared beneath fresh snow and navigation became guesswork. Now you face a crisis that seems insurmountable. The rival clan blocking your path numbers at least 20 warriors, perhaps more, hidden in the ice formations surrounding the fjord. They are led by a man you recognize from previous encounters, a chieftain named Bjorn, whose reputation for ruthlessness precedes him like winter wind. His clan controls these territories, and your presence without permission or tribute is an insult he will answer with violence. You see the calculation in his eyes as he studies your small group, weighing whether to demand surrender or simply attack. But would surrender mean slavery or death? You shift your weight slightly, and the ice beneath your boots responds with a deep groan that makes several of your companions glance down nervously. The sound is unusual, different from the normal creaking of frozen water. It carries a hollow quality, as though empty space exists below. You have spent enough years traveling across ice to recognize when something feels wrong, and this ice feels very wrong. Too thin in some places, too thick in others, with patterns that do not match natural freezing. Thomas, your second in command, stands to your right. He is a veteran of many expeditions, his beard gray before its time from exposure to harsh elements. He leans close and whispers without moving his lips, a skill learned in dangerous situations. The ice is unstable here. I can hear water moving beneath it. You nod fractionally, acknowledging his observation, while keeping your eyes on Bjorn and his warriors. The rival chieftain has begun speaking, his voice carrying across the frozen fjord with practiced authority. He demands that you surrender your goods, your weapons, and agree to servitude in his clan for the insult of entering his territory. The alternative, he makes clear, is death on this ice. Your bodies left for scavengers while your families wonder what became of you. Your mind races through options, each one bleaker than the last. Fighting is suicide against such numbers. Surrender means losing everything, including possibly your lives, once Bjorn decides you are no longer useful. Running is impossible, with warriors positioned to cut off every escape route. You need a miracle, or at least an advantage you do not currently possess. The ice groans again, louder this time. You stamp your foot deliberately, testing the surface. The vibration that returns through your boot feels strange, confirming Thomas's observation. Something hollow exists beneath this frozen surface. An idea begins forming, dangerous and desperate, but possibly your only chance. "We need time," you murmur to Thomas. "Keep them talking." Thomas raises his voice, addressing Bjorn with the formal courtesy that negotiations require. He speaks of honor, of misunderstandings, of the possibility of tribute rather than servitude. His words are designed not to convince, but to delay, giving you precious moments to study the ice more carefully. You crouch slowly, pretending to adjust your boot while actually examining the surface beneath you. The ice here is old, formed over many winters, but it shows peculiar patterns. Darker areas suggest thin spots where water flows beneath. Lighter areas indicate solid freezing, and cutting through everything is a series of subtle ridges, barely visible beneath the snow, that form an almost geometric pattern. Not natural. Something created by human hands or preserved by the ice itself. What could create such patterns in frozen water? Your fingers trace one of the ridges carefully. It runs straight for several feet before turning at a precise angle, then continues in a new direction. These are not cracks or natural formations. These are edges, boundaries, the outline of something massive buried beneath the ice. You feel your heartbeat quicken as understanding dawns. This fjord holds ruins, structures built long before your people arrived in these lands, now preserved in frozen perfection beneath your feet. One of your companions, a young man named William, notices your interest in the ice. He is clever, this one, quick to understand implications others might miss. He edges closer to you, keeping his movements casual so as not to alarm Bjorn's warriors. "What have you found?" he whispers. "Ruins," you breathe, "old ones, beneath the ice." William's eyes widen, but he maintains his composed expression. Every Norse child grows up hearing stories of the people who lived in these northern lands before the Vikings arrived. The old tales speak of great builders who raised stone structures that defied explanation, communities that thrived in conditions that should have made survival impossible. Most dismiss these stories as fantasy, entertainments for long winter nights. But evidence of these ancient peoples occasionally surfaces. Stone circles too perfect to be natural, carvings that predate any known settlement. If the stories hold truth, these ancient builders possessed knowledge your people have lost. Knowledge about surviving in extreme cold. Knowledge about working with ice rather than against it. And if structures exist beneath this fjord, they might contain chambers, passages, spaces that could provide shelter or advantage. But how could you reach them with enemies surrounding you and ice potentially too thick to break? Thomas continues his delaying conversation with Bjorn, but the rival chieftain grows impatient. His hand moves to his sword, a clear signal that negotiations approach their end. You need to act, but you need information first. You need to know if the structures beneath you are solid enough to support weight, if they contain accessible spaces, if they offer any tactical advantage at all. You stand slowly, your mind made up. You address Bjorn directly, your voice calm and clear. "Before we discuss terms, I would hear your account of how your clan came to control these territories. Honor demands I understand the history of lands where I might serve." It is a gamble. Either Bjorn will appreciate the respect implicit in your question, or he will see through the delay tactic and order an immediate attack. You watch his face carefully, reading the calculation in his expression. Pride wars with suspicion. The opportunity to boast about his clan's achievements tempts him, even as caution warns him not to give enemies more time. Pride wins. Bjorn begins speaking of his ancestors, of battles won and territories claimed, of the strength that has kept his clan dominant in these frozen lands. His warriors relax slightly, confident in their superior numbers and position. This is the opening you need. You crouch again, this time placing both hands flat against the ice. You close your eyes, shutting out the visual distractions, and focus entirely on what you can feel through your palms. The ice pulses with information if you know how to read it. Temperature variations, vibration patterns, the subtle movement of water beneath the frozen surface. You learned this technique from an old hunter who spent 50 winters traveling across ice, a man who could predict exactly where ice would support weight and where it would crack and drown the unwary. What you feel now confirms your suspicions and offers hope. The structures beneath the ice are not solid stone, but contain hollow spaces, chambers, or passages that have remained sealed by ice for generations. More importantly, the ice directly beneath your position shows signs of weakness, areas where the frozen surface has thinned over time, possibly due to underground water flow or thermal activity from the buried structures themselves. Could you break through to the chambers below? You open your eyes and catch Thomas's attention with a quick gesture. You have developed a simple hand language over years of working together, signs that allow communication in situations where speaking would be dangerous or impossible. You sign quickly: hollow below, thin ice, possible breakthrough, extreme risk. Thomas's eyebrows raise fractionally, the only sign of his surprise. He signs back: numbers against us, no choice, proceed. You feel a rush of gratitude for your second's trust. He understands that you are proposing something desperate, possibly suicidal, but he also recognizes that remaining on the surface means certain defeat. Whatever lies beneath the ice represents the only chance for your expedition to survive. You make your decision. Rising to your feet, you interrupt Bjorn's boasting with a clear, carrying voice. Your clan's history honors them. Before we discuss surrender, I would make an offering to the gods, asking their guidance in this decision. Surely you would not deny a man the right to pray before accepting servitude? Bjorn hesitates, then nods curtly. Denying such a request would offend the gods, a risk no wise leader takes, regardless of tactical situation. Make your offering quickly. You reach for the pouch at your belt, the one containing small items of value meant for trade. But instead of removing anything, you signal to your companions with carefully orchestrated movements. They understand immediately, years of traveling together creating an almost telepathic connection during crises. They begin shifting positions subtly, moving to form a tight cluster around you, their weight concentrating on the section of ice you have identified as weakest. You raise your voice as though beginning a prayer, but the words you speak are actually instructions disguised as religious invocation. Great Odin, we ask guidance as we stand upon this frozen ground. We ask strength to face what lies beneath our feet. We ask wisdom to know when the ice can bear us and when it must break. On the word break, you and your 11 companions simultaneously slam their feet downward with all their combined weight. Over 2,000 pounds of force concentrate on a single weakened point in the ice. The surface holds for 1 heartbeat, 2. Then, with a crack like thunder, it gives way. But would the fall kill you before you could discover what the ice was hiding? You plunge through the shattered ice into darkness and shocking cold. Water envelops you instantly, stealing your breath, clawing at your heavy winter clothing. Around you splash the bodies of your companions, all of you falling together into the black water beneath the frozen surface. Above, you hear shouts of alarm from Bjorn's warriors, confusion and shock at this unexpected development. You force yourself not to panic despite the cold that feels like knives against your skin. You remember the patterns you felt in the ice, the geometric edges suggesting structures below. You kick downward rather than upward, fighting every instinct screaming to surface and breathe. Your hands grope through the darkness, seeking the stone you know must exist beneath you. Your lungs begin to burn. The cold water saps strength from your muscles with frightening speed. Your fingers find nothing but water, and despair begins creeping in. Then, just as you prepare to surrender and kick upward to the surface, your hand strikes stone. Not a natural formation, but carved rock, shaped by deliberate hands into smooth surfaces and sharp corners. You follow the stone wall downward, your lungs screaming for air, and suddenly your hand plunges into empty space. An opening, a passage leading into the buried structure. You pull yourself through, kicking hard to propel your body into the dark tunnel. The passage angles upward almost immediately, a design that suggests these ancient builders understood water dynamics and intentionally created air pockets. You swim upward through the passage, your vision starting to dim from lack of oxygen. Then, suddenly, you break through into air. You gasp, drawing in lungfuls of stale but breathable atmosphere. You have found an air pocket, a chamber inside the buried structure that has remained sealed and dry despite being submerged beneath ice and water for unknown centuries. You tread water in the darkness, gasping, as around you your companions begin surfacing one by one. You hear their desperate inhalations, their coughing and sputtering as they adjust to breathing again. You count voices anxiously, hoping against hope that all 12 survived the desperate plunge. The count reaches 11, then stops. Your heart sinks. Someone did not make it through. Who have you lost? Sound off, you command through chattering teeth. Your companions call out their names in turn. Thomas, William, John, Peter, Robert, Edward, James, Richard, Harold, George. 10 voices, plus your own, makes 11. 1 missing. Who is not here? A terrible silence follows before Thomas speaks the name you were dreading. Henry. Young Henry. Henry was barely 16 winters old, the youngest member of your expedition, a boy included because his father hoped the journey would teach him the skills needed to become a trader. Now he is gone, likely drowned when he couldn't find the passage through the stone, or too panicked to search for it. You feel grief and guilt warring in your chest, but survival instinct overrides both emotions. You can mourn later if you live to see later. Right now, you must assess your situation and determine if this desperate gamble has bought you anything beyond delayed death. Stay together, you order through the darkness. Hold on to the person next to you. We need to find solid ground and determine what shelter this place offers. You begin swimming in what you hope is the right direction, one hand stretched ahead to feel for obstacles. The water is bitingly cold, each movement requiring tremendous effort as your soaked clothing drags at your limbs. But the chamber is not large, and within moments your searching hand strikes stone that angles upward out of the water. Steps, you realize with relief. These ancient builders included stairs leading up from the water level. You pull yourself onto the steps, your muscles trembling from cold and exertion. Behind you, your companions follow, helping each other out of the water and onto the stone. You sit in the darkness, all of you shivering violently, and take stock of your situation. You are trapped inside a submerged structure of unknown size and layout, soaking wet in temperatures well below freezing, with no light source and no clear way to exit. Above, Bjorn and his warriors surely wait for any survivors to surface. Yet despite all this, you are alive. You have escaped immediate capture or death. And you have discovered something extraordinary, a preserved structure from the ancient builders, potentially containing knowledge or resources that could aid your survival. But could you survive long enough to explore it? Thomas speaks from beside you, his voice shaking but steady. We need warmth immediately. In these wet clothes, in this cold, we will die within hours, even sheltered from wind. He is right. Hypothermia is now your most pressing enemy, more dangerous than Bjorn, more lethal than drowning. Your expedition carries fire-starting materials, but they are soaked. The only way to survive is to find shelter deeper in these ruins. Find a way to dry your clothes, find something to burn for warmth. You force yourself to stand on trembling legs. We explore. Stay together, move carefully. We need to find a dry chamber and anything that can be burned for heat. You begin climbing the stairs, using your hands to feel each step before committing weight to it. The stone is incredibly smooth, worn either by age or by careful craftsmanship to a finish that feels almost glassy. The stairs seem to go on forever, climbing upward through the darkness. Your legs burn with effort, your breathing becomes labored, but you push forward because stopping means dying. After perhaps 50 steps, your reaching hand encounters a flat surface, a landing, and beyond it, an opening leading into another chamber. You step through carefully, your companions filing in behind you. The air here feels different, less humid, slightly warmer. Your eyes, adjusted to complete darkness, begin detecting the faintest suggestion of light somewhere ahead. You move toward the light source, hope rising in your chest. As you progress, the illumination grows stronger, revealing that it comes from above, from cracks in what must be the ceiling where pale winter daylight filters through. The cracks are narrow, too small for a person to escape through, but they provide precious light and suggest this chamber sits close to the surface. The light reveals the space around you, and what you see makes you stop in wonder despite your desperate circumstances. The chamber is vast, easily 50 feet across and 30 feet high. The walls are carved with intricate patterns, images that tell stories in a language you cannot read. The floor is paved with fitted stone so precisely cut that no gaps exist between pieces. And arranged throughout the chamber are objects, artifacts preserved in the dry, cold air as though placed yesterday rather than generations ago. What knowledge had the ice been hiding all this time? You move deeper into the chamber, examining the artifacts with growing excitement. There are tools made from stone and bone, their purposes unclear, but their craftsmanship undeniable. There are woven textiles, impossibly preserved, showing dyes and patterns unlike anything your culture produces. There are clay vessels sealed with wax, their contents unknown. And most importantly, stacked against one wall, there is wood. Huge quantities of preserved timber, cut and shaped but never used for whatever purpose the ancient builders intended. Fuel, Thomas breathes beside you, following your gaze. Enough to keep us warm for weeks. William moves to examine the sealed vessels, his trader's instinct drawn to potential value. These containers might hold food or oil. If the seals held, the contents could still be preserved. You feel a surge of hope stronger than any you have experienced since the ice broke beneath you. This chamber offers more than shelter. It offers resources, tools, knowledge. It offers a chance not just to survive, but to thrive while you wait for Bjorn to believe you drowned and leave the area. But first, you must address the immediate crisis of hypothermia threatening your group. You turn to your companions, all of them shivering violently in their soaked clothing. We build fire immediately. John and Peter gather the smallest pieces of wood. Robert and Edward help me clear a space for the fire where smoke can escape through the ceiling cracks. The rest of you remove your wet outer layers and wring them out as thoroughly as possible. We will hang them near the fire to dry once it is established. Your companions move to follow orders, grateful to have clear direction and purpose. You clear an area of the floor near the center of the chamber where the ceiling cracks are largest, pushing aside a thin layer of dust that has accumulated over unknown years. The stone beneath is perfectly flat, ideal for a fire that will not spread or tip. John and Peter return with armfuls of the ancient timber. The wood is incredibly dry, preserved by the cold, low humidity, and sealed environment. It should burn easily once ignited, but that presents your immediate challenge. Your fire-starting materials are soaked. The bow drill kit you carry is useless when wet. You need another method to create flame. What ancient solution might these ruins provide? You scan the chamber desperately, searching for anything that might help. Your eye catches on a collection of tools arranged on a stone shelf. You move to examine them, finding implements made from materials you do not immediately recognize. Some appear to be stone, but with unusual colors and textures. Others seem to be metal, but not iron or bronze. Something different, something that shimmers even in the dim light filtering from above. Thomas joins you, his keen eye studying the tools. That metal, I have seen something similar once, in a trader's collection. He called it sky stone, claimed it fell from the heavens, extremely rare and valuable. Meteoritic iron, you murmur, recognition dawning. You have heard stories of such material, metal that requires no smelting because it arrives already pure from the sky. If these ancient builders had access to meteoric iron, they might have created tools with unusual properties. You select 2 pieces of the skystone metal, both small and blade-like. You strike them together experimentally. Sparks shower down, bright and hot, far more than normal iron striking stone produces. The meteoritic composition creates intense sparks easily. If you can direct those sparks onto proper tinder, you might start fire even without dry fire-starting materials. I need the finest, driest material we can find, you announce. Search the textiles, find anything that shreds to loose fibers. William and James move to examine the preserved fabrics, carefully pulling threads from pieces that look most delicate. They create a small nest of fiber, incredibly fine and dry despite the chamber's moisture. You take the nest and arrange it on the stone floor, then position the 2 meteoritic iron pieces above it. You strike them together hard, showering sparks onto the fiber nest. On the 3rd strike, the tinder catches, a tiny ember glowing orange in the gloom. You lower your face and blow gently, feeding the ember with oxygen while shielding it from drafts. The ember spreads through the fiber nest, smoke rising. You add more shredded textile, building the heat gradually. When flames finally spring to life, small and tentative but real, a collective sigh of relief rises from your companions. You feed the fire carefully, adding increasingly larger pieces of the ancient timber. The wood ignites beautifully, burning hot and relatively smoke-free. The flames grow quickly, casting dancing light through the chamber and beginning to radiate blessed warmth. Your companions crowd around the fire, hands stretched toward heat, their shivering beginning to subside. Remove wet clothing completely, you order. We need to get warm and dry. Modesty is less important than survival. Hang everything near the fire but not close enough to burn. We will take turns rotating positions so everyone gets equal warmth. The men comply without hesitation, stripping down to bare skin and wringing out every garment. You do the same, feeling immediate relief as the soaking wool and leather leave your body. The fire's warmth touches your exposed skin like a blessing, chasing away the bone-deep cold that threatened to kill you. As you stand naked before the fire alongside your companions, all of you focused solely on survival, you feel a profound shift in your situation. Minutes ago, you faced death from multiple directions, enemies above, cold water around you, hypothermia creeping through your veins. Now you stand in an ancient chamber filled with resources, warm fire driving away cold, hope replacing despair. But the challenges are far from over, and the real test of survival is only beginning. You spend the next several hours focused entirely on warmth and recovery. The fire grows to a substantial blaze, the ancient timber burning with surprising heat. You arrange wet clothing on improvised racks made from smaller pieces of wood, positioning them to dry in the fire's warmth. Steam rises from the fabric, filling the chamber with humid air that actually feels pleasant after the bitter cold outside. As feeling returns to your extremities and strength rebuilds in your muscles, you begin thinking beyond immediate survival. You examine the chamber more thoroughly, studying the carved walls and arranged artifacts with growing fascination. These ancient builders were more than simple people struggling to survive in harsh conditions. They were sophisticated, knowledgeable, capable of feats your own culture cannot replicate. The carvings on the walls tell stories you wish you could read. They show people living in these northern lands, but with knowledge that allowed them to thrive rather than merely endure. Images depict what appear to be underground chambers connected by tunnels, communities living beneath the ice rather than upon it. Other images show the ancient people working with the cold itself, using ice as a construction material, shaping it deliberately rather than avoiding it. Could this knowledge still be applied today? Thomas joins you in studying the carvings, his veteran's eye picking out details you might have missed. Look at this section, he points to a series of images showing people moving between chambers. These passages appear to form a network. If this chamber connects to others, we might have more space to explore, more resources to discover, perhaps even alternative exits. The possibility energizes you despite your exhaustion. If the ruins form an extensive network, you might find supplies, tools, or knowledge that could help you not just survive, but eventually escape past Bjorn's warriors. You make a mental note to begin exploration once everyone is fully recovered and properly clothed again. William approaches with one of the sealed clay vessels he examined earlier. I have opened this carefully. The seal was intact. Look at what it contains. You peer into the vessel and see a thick, viscous substance that smells faintly oily. What is it? Some kind of fat or oil, I think. Preserved remarkably well. It could be food, though I hesitate to taste it without knowing its source. But more importantly, it could be additional fuel for our fire, waterproofing for our clothing once they dry, or lubricant for tools and weapons. You nod approvingly. Well spotted. Check the other sealed vessels. Inventory everything we find. We need to understand what resources we have access to. As William moves away to continue his inventory, you return to studying the wall carvings. One section in particular draws your attention, a sequence showing what appears to be a ceremony or ritual involving the ice itself. The ancient people are depicted placing objects beneath the ice, sealing them deliberately, as though preserving something precious for future discovery. The realization strikes you suddenly. These ruins are not simply abandoned structures that happen to be buried by ice over time. The ancient builders deliberately created sealed chambers beneath the frozen surface, preserving knowledge and resources for whoever might need them in the future. You and your companions did not stumble into these chambers by accident. You were meant to find them, guided by the ice itself in your moment of greatest need. Did the ancient builders foresee a time when their knowledge would save lives? You share this observation with Thomas, who listens thoughtfully before responding. Whether they foresaw the future or simply prepared for possibilities, they have given us a gift. The question is whether we are wise enough to use it properly. Over the next hours, as clothing dries and strength returns, your expedition transforms from desperate refugees into organized explorers. You establish a systematic approach to examining the chamber, dividing it into sections and cataloging everything found. The inventory grows impressively. 17 sealed vessels containing various substances, oils, fats, powders, and dried materials of unknown composition. Enough preserved timber to fuel fires for months. Stone tools of exceptional quality, sharper and more durable than anything your own culture produces. Textiles showing weaving techniques unfamiliar to your people. Carved bone implements whose purposes you can only guess. And, most intriguingly, stone tablets covered with symbols that might be writing or might be decorative art. Richard, who possesses unusual interest in scholarly matters for a trader, becomes fixated on the tablets. He copies symbols onto scraps of cloth using charcoal from the fire, hoping to decipher meaning. If this is language, he muses, it might contain instructions or explanations. The ancient builders might have left messages specifically for those who found these chambers. The fire crackles warmly as your companions work, the chamber filling with purposeful activity. Wet clothing steams on racks. Men examine artifacts and speculate about their uses. The horrible crisis of hours ago feels almost dreamlike now, replaced by the immediate reality of warmth, shelter, and possibility. But in the back of your mind, you cannot forget the dangers that remain. Henry is dead, drowned in the icy water during your desperate plunge. His loss weighs on you, a constant reminder of the price paid for survival. Above ground, Bjorn's warriors surely watch the ice hole, waiting to see if anyone emerges. And eventually, you will need to find a way out of these chambers and past those enemies if you hope to return home. For now, though, you have shelter, warmth, and time. Time to recover strength, time to explore these ancient ruins, time to understand what the ice has been hiding and how that knowledge might save your lives. What other secrets do these chambers hold? As the day progresses, marked by the changing quality of light filtering through the ceiling cracks, you organize an expedition to explore beyond the main chamber. You select Thomas, William, and John to accompany you, leaving the others to maintain the fire and continue cataloging artifacts. Before departing, you ensure everyone understands the protocols. Keep the fire burning continuously, never let it die completely. Assign watches to monitor smoke and maintain steady heat. Explore the chamber thoroughly, but do not remove or damage artifacts unnecessarily. You take several pieces of the ancient timber to use as torches, wrapping one end with the preserved textiles soaked in the oily substance William discovered. When lit, these makeshift torches burn brightly and steadily, providing excellent illumination. You also take some of the stone tools, the meteoritic iron pieces for emergency fire starting, and several lengths of textile to use as rope if needed. The main chamber has 3 openings besides the water-filled entrance you used initially. 2 are passages leading into darkness at roughly the same level as the chamber floor. The 3rd is a shaft leading upward, too steep and smooth to climb without equipment, but interesting for future consideration. You choose the largest of the horizontal passages and enter it carefully, torch held high. The passage is roughly 10 feet wide and 8 feet high, clearly intended for regular use by the ancient builders. The walls show the same meticulous stone craftsmanship as the main chamber, fitted so precisely that you cannot slide a knife blade between blocks. The floor slopes slightly downward, leading deeper beneath the ice. You advance slowly, alert for dangers. Ancient ruins can contain pitfalls, unstable structures, or other hazards. But this passage seems remarkably well preserved, showing no signs of collapse or significant deterioration. The cold, dry, sealed environment has protected everything perfectly. After perhaps 200 feet, the passage opens into another chamber, smaller than the first but equally well crafted. This room appears to have been a workshop of some kind. Stone benches line the walls, and upon them rest tools in various stages of completion. You see partially carved bone implements, stone blades with incomplete hafting, woven textiles still on their looms. It is as though the ancient builders simply walked away one day, leaving their work unfinished. "This is remarkable," William breathes, studying a loom with partially completed fabric. "The weaving technique is more sophisticated than anything our people use. Look at the thread count, the evenness of the weave. This would take our best weavers months to replicate, and theirs is not even finished." Thomas examines the stone tools with professional interest. "These blades are superior to ours in every way, sharper, more durable, better balanced. If we could learn their manufacturing techniques, our weapons and tools would improve dramatically." You nod, feeling the same mixture of wonder and frustration. These ancient people possessed knowledge your culture has lost or never acquired. Learning even a fraction of their techniques could benefit your settlement enormously. But first, you must survive to bring that knowledge home. The workshop chamber has 2 additional passages leading away from it. You mark your route carefully using small stone cairns so you can navigate back. Then choose the left passage. This one slopes more steeply downward, descending deeper beneath the surface. The air grows noticeably cooler and more humid as you descend, suggesting proximity to water. After perhaps 100 feet of descent, you reach another chamber, and what you find here makes you stop in amazement. The chamber is enormous, at least twice the size of the original room, and it contains a pool. But not a pool of seawater or melted ice. The liquid is perfectly still, perfectly clear, and when you touch it cautiously, perfectly unfrozen despite temperatures that should turn it to ice. How can water remain liquid in such cold? William kneels beside the pool, studying it with his trader's curiosity. The water is slightly warm, not hot, but warm enough to prevent freezing. There must be a thermal source beneath this chamber, possibly volcanic activity deep in the earth. You process this information, understanding the implications. The ancient builders deliberately constructed this chamber above a geothermal source, using Earth's heat to maintain liquid water even in the coldest conditions. This is sophisticated engineering beyond anything your people could achieve. But more than engineering, it represents a resource of immense value. Liquid water in winter is precious, eliminating the need to melt snow or ice for drinking. And if the water is slightly warm, it could be used for bathing, for washing clothes, for any number of purposes that improve survival chances. You dip a hand in the pool again, letting the warmth seep into your fingers. The sensation is almost luxurious after the bitter cold you have endured. You cup some water and bring it to your lips, tasting cautiously. The water is clean, with a slight mineral taste, but nothing unpleasant. You drink more deeply, feeling the warm liquid spread through your body. "We can use this," you announce to your companions. "This pool gives us reliable water supply and modest warmth. We should establish this as a secondary camp location." John, the youngest of your group after Henry's death, speaks up hesitantly. "Should we not return to the others and share this discovery immediately?" You consider his suggestion, then shake your head. "We continue exploring for another hour. I want to understand the extent of these ruins before we settle into routine. The more we know about our environment, the better we can plan for eventual escape." You leave the pool chamber through the remaining unexplored passage. This one angles back upward, climbing gradually but persistently. You ascend for perhaps 300 feet, your torch burning lower as time passes. Just as you begin considering turning back, the passage ends in another chamber, and what you discover here changes everything. The chamber is small, barely 20 feet across, but it contains a shaft leading upward to the surface, a shaft with carved handholds that make climbing possible. More importantly, the shaft is sealed at the top not by ice or stone, but by what appears to be a covering that could be moved, a trapdoor into the world above. You have found an exit, a way to leave the ruins without swimming back through the flooded entrance. Thomas grips your shoulder, his excitement palpable. This changes our options completely. We are not trapped beneath the ice. We can come and go as needed. You nod, but caution tempers your excitement. The exit is valuable, but we must use it carefully. If Bjorn's warriors are still watching the area, emerging carelessly could lead them directly to our shelter. We need reconnaissance before we use this passage. William suggests a sensible approach. One person climbs carefully and observes through cracks in the covering without revealing themselves. We learn what is happening above ground before making decisions. You agree, and after brief discussion, you decide to perform the reconnaissance yourself. As the expedition leader, the risk should fall to you. You hand your torch to Thomas and begin climbing the shaft using the carved handholds that have survived unknown centuries without significant wear. The ancient builders carved deep, reliable grips that make climbing relatively easy despite your fatigue. The shaft is perhaps 40 feet tall, climbing through solid stone initially and then through what must be ice near the top. You ascend carefully, testing each handhold before committing your weight. At the top, you find the covering is indeed a trapdoor made from stone and fitted so precisely that from above it would be invisible, appearing as simply more frozen ground. You press your eye to a hairline gap between the trapdoor and its frame, peering through to see what lies above. The view is limited, but you can see enough. You are perhaps half a mile from where you broke through the ice initially. The landscape is empty of warriors, though you spot distant figures near the ice hole, probably sentries left to watch for survivors. The late afternoon sun hangs low on the horizon, painting everything in shades of orange and blue. The beauty of the Arctic winter landscape strikes you even in your dangerous circumstances. You remain motionless for long minutes, watching for patrols or signs of organized search. You see neither. It appears Bjorn has concluded your group drowned and left only minimal watch on the ice hole while withdrawing his main force. This is valuable intelligence, confirming that you are not immediately at risk of discovery, but also indicating that enemies remain nearby. You climb back down and report your findings to your companions. We have shelter, water, fuel, and a hidden exit, Thomas summarizes. We are in the strongest position we have been since this crisis began. The question is what we do with this advantage. What strategy would ensure both survival and eventual escape? You lead your small group back through the tunnels to the main chamber, marking the route carefully so anyone can find the pool chamber and exit shaft. When you return, you find the others have made significant progress organizing the chamber. Clothing hangs drying on improvised racks. The fire burns steadily in its cleared space. Artifacts are sorted into categories along one wall. The chamber looks less like an ancient ruin and more like a functioning camp. You gather everyone and share your discoveries. The workshop chamber, the geothermal pool, the exit shaft. Spirits lift noticeably as men realize they are not trapped indefinitely beneath the ice. The exit represents hope, possibility, eventual return home. But you also share the sobering reality. We cannot simply leave immediately. Bjorn's warriors remain in the area. If we emerge and try to travel, they will spot and capture us. Our supplies are gone, taken when we fled the surface. We have no food beyond what we might find in these ruins, and winter travel without provisions is suicide. Peter, who has been examining the sealed vessels, speaks up. Some of these containers hold dried foods. They are ancient, but preservation has been remarkable. I have identified what appears to be dried fish, grain, and possibly nuts or seeds. Not abundant, but enough to supplement whatever we might hunt or gather if we had tools and weapons. Robert adds his own observation. The sealed vessels containing fats and oils could make excellent long-burning lamps if we had wicks. Light will become increasingly important as we spend more time in these chambers. You feel pleased by your companion's initiative and problem-solving. They are not simply waiting for leadership, but actively seeking solutions. This adaptability will be crucial for long-term survival. Here is my assessment, you say, organizing your thoughts aloud. We have stumbled into an extraordinary shelter with resources that allow extended survival. Rather than viewing this as a prison, we should see it as an opportunity. We remain here for several weeks, allowing Bjorn to believe we are dead and withdraw from the area. During that time, we explore these ruins thoroughly, learn everything we can from the ancient builders, gather and prepare supplies for our eventual journey home. When we finally depart, we do so from a position of strength, not desperation. Thomas nods approvingly. Winters here last months. If we remain until early spring, ice conditions change, making travel easier. Bjorn will long since have returned to his settlement. We could travel home with minimal risk of encounter. The plan makes sense to everyone. You spend the evening discussing details and assigning responsibilities. William will lead the ongoing inventory of artifacts and sealed vessels. Thomas will organize a hunting party once you determine how to safely exit and return through the shaft. John and Peter will maintain the fire and manage fuel supplies. Robert will experiment with the oils and fats to create lamps. Richard will continue attempting to decipher the carved tablets. You assign yourself the task of mapping the entire ruin complex, understanding its layout, identifying all resources and potential hazards. As leader, you need comprehensive knowledge of your environment to make informed decisions. That night, sleeping on the stone floor with the fire burning warmly nearby, you feel something you have not felt since Bjorn's warriors surrounded you: peace. Yes, you are trapped beneath Arctic ice. Yes, Henry is dead. Yes, tremendous challenges remain. But you are alive, sheltered, and armed with knowledge from people who mastered survival and conditions that should have been impossible. The ice was hiding more than ancient ruins. It was hiding lessons about resilience, adaptation, and the enduring human capacity to thrive against overwhelming odds. Over the following days, your expedition settles into productive routine. You explore the ruins methodically, discovering that the complex is far more extensive than initially apparent. The chambers and passages form a network spanning over a square mile, all of it sealed beneath the frozen surface, all of it remarkably preserved. You find storage rooms filled with preserved foods, though most are so ancient you hesitate to consume them without testing. You find what appear to be living quarters with built-in stone furniture and sleeping platforms. You find additional workshops specialized for different crafts: stone tool making, textile weaving, bone carving, hide tanning. Each discovery adds to your understanding of the ancient builders. They were not primitive people struggling to survive. They were sophisticated, organized, capable of creating infrastructure that supported community life even in the harshest imaginable conditions. They understood thermal dynamics, using geothermal heat to maintain livable temperatures in sealed chambers. They understood food preservation, creating sealed containers that kept contents viable for generations. They understood architecture, building structures that remained sound despite enormous weight of ice above them. Most impressively, they understood knowledge transfer. The carved tablets Richard studies appear to be instructional texts, step-by-step guides for various survival techniques. Richard makes breakthrough after breakthrough in translation, realizing that the symbols are not words but images representing concepts. By studying the context of surrounding carvings, he begins understanding the messages. One tablet shows techniques for ice fishing in winter. Another demonstrates constructing insulated clothing using multiple layers of different materials. A third explains creating fire in extremely cold conditions using friction, sparks, or focused sunlight through ice lenses. Each lesson is practical, immediately applicable, precisely what people in crisis need to survive. They created a survival library, Richard explains excitedly during one evening gathering. These chambers are not just ruins, they are schools, left deliberately for future people facing the same challenges the ancient builders faced. Every artifact, every carving, every sealed container is part of a comprehensive education in Arctic survival. The revelation transforms how you view your situation. You are not just sheltering in abandoned ruins. You are students in a school created by masters of cold weather survival, learning lessons that could benefit your entire culture if successfully brought home. But learning requires time, and time brings new challenges. Food becomes the most pressing concern. The ancient preserved foods help, but cannot sustain 11 people indefinitely. You need to hunt, which means using the exit shaft to access the surface. This carries risk but is unavoidable. Thomas volunteers to lead the hunting expeditions. You provide him with the best stone weapons from the ancient arsenal and detailed observations from your reconnaissance. He takes 2 companions and climbs the exit shaft at dawn, when low light makes observation from a distance difficult. They remain on the surface for several hours, hunting small game in areas away from where Bjorn's sentries watch. The first hunting expedition returns successfully with 2 Arctic hares, lean meat but welcome protein. Subsequent expeditions bring more hares, occasional ptarmigan, once even a young seal that wandered inland. The meat is butchered in the workshop chamber, with blood and waste carefully disposed of in cracks that lead to water-filled passages below. Nothing is wasted. Hides are cleaned and dried for clothing repairs. Bones are carved into tools and needles. Fat is rendered for lamp fuel. Your group develops efficiency born from necessity and opportunity. The ancient ruins provide shelter and knowledge. Your own skills in hunting, tool-making, and resource management provide practical application of that knowledge. Together, you create a survival system that actually improves your daily lives compared to surface living in winter. Weeks pass in productive routine. The fire burns continuously, fueled by ancient timber that seems inexhaustible. Lamps made from hollowed stones filled with rendered fat provide light throughout the chambers. Your clothing, repaired with techniques learned from carved instructions, becomes warmer and more durable. Food supplies remain adequate through careful rationing and regular hunting. The geothermal pool provides water, bathing, and therapeutic warmth for sore muscles. But something else develops during these weeks beneath the ice. Your group bonds in ways unusual for Viking expeditions. Living in close quarters, sharing every resource, depending absolutely on each other's skills, creates intimacy that transcends normal social structures. Ranks and status fade. Erik, the expedition leader, Thomas the veteran, William the trader, young John, everyone becomes simply people surviving together. You share stories during long evenings by the fire, personal histories that would never be revealed in normal circumstances. You learn that Thomas lost his entire family to raiders years ago and travels to avoid memories. William dreams of establishing a trading empire, but fears he lacks boldness. John struggles with feeling inadequate compared to his accomplished older brothers. Each revelation creates connection, understanding, empathy. The carved tablets provide conversation topics beyond personal stories. Richard translates new sections regularly, sparking discussions about how the ancient builders' techniques might be adapted. One evening, he translates a section about creating ice structures that can provide temporary shelter during surface travel. The builders apparently could shape ice blocks into interlocking formations that resisted wind and retained heat. If we master this technique before leaving, Thomas observes, our return journey becomes much safer. We could build emergency shelters anywhere during storms rather than being exposed to elements. You assign Peter and Robert to practice ice construction using the carved instructions as guide. They exit through the shaft during daylight, work in an isolated area well away from potential observers, and experiment with cutting and shaping ice blocks. Their early attempts are crude, but improvement comes quickly. Within a week, they can construct a small but functional ice shelter in under an hour. These practical lessons extend beyond ice construction. You learn food preservation techniques using rendered fat and seal containers. You learn to identify edible lichens and plants that remain nutritious even when frozen. You learn navigation methods using sun angle and snow patterns when landmarks are obscured. Each lesson increases your expedition's chances of successful return home. But the lessons also raise profound questions about the ancient builders. Who were they? Where did they go? Why did they leave such comprehensive instruction but no people to teach directly? The carved images provide no clear answers. They show thriving communities, sophisticated infrastructure, organized society. Then, nothing. No images of departure, disaster, or decline. Simply a transition from abundant documentation to empty chambers. Perhaps they did not leave, Richard speculates one evening. Perhaps they evolved, changed, became something different. Or perhaps they simply moved deeper, creating new shelters in locations we have not discovered. The mystery haunts you pleasantly, an intellectual puzzle that occupies mind during quiet hours. But practical concerns eventually reclaim attention. Winter deepens outside, bringing the coldest temperatures of the season. Even your heated chambers feel the change, with frost forming near passages that lead toward the surface. The fire requires more fuel to maintain comfortable heat. Hunting becomes more challenging as game grows scarce, and hunting trips must be shorter to avoid dangerous cold exposure. Then, one morning, Thomas returns from a hunting expedition with news that changes everything. He climbs down the exit shaft urgently, his face flushed with cold and excitement. He gathers everyone immediately. Bjorn's warriors have returned, he announces grimly. Not just sentries, but a full party, at least 15 men. They are setting up a camp on the ice near where we originally broke through. They appear to be organizing some kind of excavation or salvage operation. Your blood chills despite the chamber's warmth. Did they see you? No, we remained hidden and observed from a distance. But they will be in the area for days, perhaps weeks. Surface hunting is now impossible without extreme risk. The news sends ripples of concern through your group. You have grown comfortable in your underground sanctuary, but that comfort depended on ability to access the surface for hunting. Without fresh meat, your food supplies will not last more than 2 weeks. You face a choice between risking discovery through continued hunting or waiting out Bjorn's presence while food dwindles toward starvation. What decision could possibly satisfy both safety and survival needs? You call a council that evening, gathering everyone to discuss options. The fire burns low as you present the situation honestly. We face a dilemma. Surface access is now extremely dangerous. But remaining sealed below without hunting will deplete our food supplies quickly. We need creative solutions. William speaks first, his trader's mind seeking alternatives. The sealed vessels we have not yet opened, some contain preserved foods of unknown age. We have avoided them out of caution, but perhaps necessity demands we test them now. Peter adds his own suggestion. The geothermal pool might contain fish or other aquatic life we could harvest. We have not explored its depths thoroughly. I volunteer to investigate. Thomas proposes a bolder approach. One person could attempt to contact Bjorn directly, claiming to be a sole survivor who can lead them to our expedition's trade goods. The deception would draw them away from the ice hole, giving others chances to hunt safely. You listen to each idea carefully, weighing risks and benefits. William's suggestion about the ancient preserved foods carries risk of illness, but seems manageable with careful testing. Peter's idea to explore the pool for aquatic food sources is sensible and low risk. Thomas's proposal is clever, but extremely dangerous, risking immediate death if the deception is discovered. We pursue multiple approaches, you decide. Peter investigates the pool. William carefully tests the ancient preserved foods, starting with tiny amounts to check for spoilage or toxicity. I will perform reconnaissance to understand why Bjorn has returned and how long he might stay. If their presence is temporary, we simply endure the inconvenience. If they plan extended occupation, we reconsider more drastic options. John raises a concern. What if they are searching for entrance to these ruins? What if they know or suspect something valuable exists beneath the ice? The possibility had not occurred to you, but John's question carries frightening implications. If Bjorn seeks the ruins specifically, your sanctuary could become a prison or worse. You need intelligence about his intentions. That night, you prepare for reconnaissance carefully. You select the warmest clothing, darkest colors to blend with twilight shadows. You take no weapons beyond a small knife, nothing that would mark you as threat if spotted at distance. You exit through the shaft during the brief period between sunset and full darkness, when visibility is poor but movement is still possible. The surface world strikes you with shocking cold after weeks in the heated chambers. The wind cuts through your clothing despite its quality. You move carefully through the twilight landscape, staying low, using ice formations for cover. The sky is clear, filled with stars and the dancing lights of Aurora Borealis painting ribbons of green and blue across the heavens. Bjorn's camp lies perhaps 300 yards from your exit point. You approach cautiously, using every stealth technique learned over years of hunting. When you are close enough to observe without being seen, you settle into position behind an ice ridge and watch. The camp is well organized, showing signs of intended extended stay. Several large tents made from hide and canvas. A substantial fire burning in a protected pit. Sleds loaded with supplies. You count 16 warriors, all well-equipped and apparently comfortable despite the harsh conditions. This is not a hasty patrol, but a deliberate expedition. What you see next explains everything and changes your situation dramatically. The warriors are not randomly salvaging around the ice hole. They are systematically clearing snow and ice from a specific area, revealing stone beneath. Ancient stone. The ruins extend further than you realized, with structures or markers visible from the surface near where you broke through. Bjorn has discovered evidence of the ancient builders, and he seeks to claim whatever treasures might exist below. You watch for another hour, gathering details. The excavation focuses on a section of stone that appears to be a sealed entrance, possibly an intentional doorway used by the ancient builders. If Bjorn's men break through, they will gain access to the ruin complex from a different direction than your entrance. You might find yourselves sharing the chambers with enemies, or worse, trapped between their position and your only known exit. The situation has transformed from inconvenient to critical. You must act, but what action serves both short-term survival and long-term safety? You retreat carefully from your observation position and return to the exit shaft. Climbing down to your companions, you share what you discovered. The news creates immediate tension. Men begin talking urgently, proposing various responses, ranging from collapse the passage Bjorn is excavating to abandoning the ruins entirely and attempting winter surface travel despite risks. You raise your hand for silence. We do not panic. We have advantages Bjorn lacks. We know the ruin layout. We control the interior spaces. We understand the ancient builders' techniques. If Bjorn breaks through, we can either avoid him in sections he does not reach, or we can use the environment to our advantage. Thomas supports your position. Erik is right. Bjorn's men will enter the ruins cold, uncertain, unprepared. We are warm, knowledgeable, equipped with superior tools from the ancient arsenal. If confrontation becomes necessary, the advantage is ours. William offers a different perspective. Perhaps confrontation is unnecessary. These ruins are vast. If Bjorn enters through the section he is excavating, he might explore different chambers than those we occupy. We could avoid contact entirely while he searches, then slip away through our exit once he is deeply engaged with his own exploration. Richard adds scholarly observation. Bjorn might not be an enemy in this context. He seeks ancient treasures, likely thinking of gold or silver. We know the real treasures here are knowledge and technique, things that cannot be easily stolen or claimed. Perhaps we allow him to find what he seeks, which will not be the practical survival knowledge we have learned. The multiple perspectives help clarify your thinking. Bjorn is not here to find your expedition. He does not know you survived. He seeks ancient treasure, motivated by greed rather than revenge. If you remain undiscovered, he poses no direct threat. The ruins are large enough to contain both groups if necessary. We prepare for multiple scenarios, you decide. First priority, preserve our survival capability regardless of Bjorn's actions. We accelerate our knowledge gathering, translating every tablet we can quickly. We practice techniques until they become instinctive. We prepare supplies for rapid departure if necessary. Second priority, monitor Bjorn's progress, understanding where he enters the ruins and which directions he explores. Third priority, maintain absolute concealment. If he does not know we are here, we hold tremendous advantage. The plan settles everyone's nerves by providing concrete actions to replace anxiety. Over the following days, your group implements the preparations with military efficiency. Richard works nearly continuously on tablet translation, recognizing that knowledge must be secured before anything interrupts your access to it. He creates copies of key instruction sets on prepared hides using ink made from charcoal and rendered fat. If forced to flee the ruins, you will carry survival knowledge with you. Thomas and William scout the ruins systematically, mapping every passage and chamber, identifying multiple exit routes beyond the shaft you have been using. They discovered 2 additional vertical shafts that reach the surface, both sealed with movable covers like the first. This discovery dramatically improves your tactical position. You can now exit from 3 different locations, making pursuit or entrapment nearly impossible. Peter's exploration of the geothermal pool yields surprising results. The pool contains life, small fish and crustaceans that thrive in the warm water. They are not abundant enough to sustain your group entirely, but they provide supplemental protein that extends your food supplies significantly. More importantly, Peter discovers that the pool connects to underwater passages, natural caves formed by geothermal activity that extend beyond the ruins. One passage leads to open water beneath the ice, potentially providing emergency exit route if surface exits become blocked. These discoveries transform your situation from desperate defense to controlled strategic positioning. You possess multiple advantages: detailed ruin knowledge, superior tools, concealed presence, multiple exit options, sustainable food and water sources. Bjorn's superior numbers mean less when he is navigating unfamiliar territory, while you hold every environmental advantage. Days pass while Bjorn's men work on their excavation. You monitor their progress through careful reconnaissance, always observing during twilight when visibility protects your movements. The excavation proceeds slowly, the frozen ground and ancient construction resisting their efforts. But they make steady progress, and eventually you observe them breaking through into a passage. The moment of breakthrough comes during a midday observation. You watch from concealment as Bjorn's warriors celebrate, their shouts carrying across the frozen landscape. They have achieved their goal, opening entrance to the ruins. Now their real exploration will begin. You retreat to your chambers and gather your companions. They are in. Within hours they will be exploring passages. We implement concealment protocols immediately. The protocols you developed are simple but comprehensive. All fires are reduced to minimal size, just enough heat to sustain life but not enough to produce noticeable smoke. All lights are extinguished except in chambers far from Bjorn's entrance point. All movement through passages is done quietly, in soft boots, with scouts positioned to provide warning if Bjorn's men approach occupied chambers. All tools and personal items are stored in designated hiding locations that can be abandoned instantly if necessary. Your group transforms from relaxed residents to silent shadows occupying the ruins. You move like ghosts through the passages, always aware of Bjorn's position, always ready to withdraw to deeper chambers if his exploration brings him too close. For 2 days, this system works perfectly. Bjorn's men explore cautiously, staying close to their entrance, mapping passages near their breakthrough point. They discover some storage chambers and react with excitement to artifact finds, confirming Richard's assessment that they seek treasure rather than survival knowledge. The ruins are vast enough that their exploration does not approach your occupied chambers. Then, on the 3rd day, something goes wrong. One of Bjorn's men, wandering further than his companions, spots signs of habitation in a passage. Boot prints in dust. A small pile of waste material that your group left. Evidence that someone has been living in these ruins recently. The warrior shouts for his companions, alerting them to the discovery. Within minutes, Bjorn himself arrives to examine the signs. You watch from concealment as he studies the evidence, his expression thoughtful and calculating. He speaks to his men in a voice too low for you to hear, but his gestures make his meaning clear. Someone else is in the ruins, someone who is hiding. Bjorn's exploration changes immediately from archaeological curiosity to tactical hunt. His warriors spread out, searching methodically, no longer interested in artifacts but focused entirely on finding hidden occupants. They call out challenges, promises of safe treatment if you surrender, threats of violence if you resist. The hunt has begun. But you have been preparing for exactly this contingency, and now the true test of survival begins. You gather your companions in a deep chamber far from Bjorn's current position. 11 men, armed with ancient weapons, thoroughly familiar with the ruin layout, facing 16 enemies who have superior numbers but navigate unfamiliar territory. The tactical situation is balanced, but it favors defenders who know the ground. We do not engage unless absolutely necessary, you instruct firmly. Our advantage is mobility and knowledge. We stay ahead of them, use passages they have not yet discovered, make them exhaust themselves searching while we remain rested. If they split their forces to search more quickly, we watch for opportunities to isolate and neutralize small groups without raising alarm. Thomas adds tactical refinement. The workshop chamber has a passage that can be blocked by rolling a heavy stone tablet into place. If we lead some of them into that chamber, block the exit, they become prisoners rather than threats. We reduce their numbers without bloodshed. William suggests a different approach. Some of the sealed vessels contain oils and fats. We could make passages treacherous by spreading slippery substances on floor stones in the dark. Their torches provide light but also mark their positions. We move in darkness while they signal their locations with every step. The ideas build on each other, creating a comprehensive strategy. You will not simply hide and hope Bjorn gives up. You will actively shape the confrontation, using environment and knowledge to neutralize his numerical advantage. It is classic Viking tactical thinking, using cunning and terrain to defeat stronger forces. Over the next several hours, you implement the strategy with precision. You identify 5 passages that can be made treacherous with spilled oil. You prepare the workshop chamber trap, positioning the heavy stone tablet so it can be quickly rolled into the blocking position. You scout Bjorn's current position and plan routes that will lead his warriors into prepared areas while keeping your group safely ahead. Then you spring the trap. John, the youngest and fastest runner, deliberately makes noise in a passage near Bjorn's position. When warriors respond to investigate, John leads them on a chase through oiled passages. The warriors slip and stumble in darkness, their torches showing them nothing but confusing tunnel passages. John stays just ahead, always visible enough to maintain pursuit, never close enough to be caught. He leads them directly to the workshop chamber, then sprints through it and out the far passage. The moment the pursuing warriors enter the workshop, Robert and Peter roll the stone tablet into position, sealing the exit. 5 of Bjorn's men are now trapped in a chamber with no other exit, isolated from their companions, neutralized without injury. Bjorn's remaining warriors hear the shouts of their trapped companions and rush to help, but they encounter the oiled passages and struggle to navigate them safely. In the darkness and confusion, they become separated. Thomas and William carefully pick off isolated individuals, using cloth sacks filled with sand from a storage chamber to strike warriors unconscious from behind. The ancient stone passages amplify sounds, making it impossible for Bjorn to determine how many enemies he faces or where attacks might come from. Within 2 hours of beginning the operation, you have neutralized 8 of Bjorn's warriors. 5 trapped in the workshop, 3 knocked unconscious and left tied with textile cordage in side chambers. Bjorn and his remaining 8 men regroup near their entrance, shouting for their companions but receiving no response. You observe from concealment as Bjorn struggles with his situation. He clearly recognizes he has lost tactical control. His men are disappearing into darkness. Enemies he cannot see are picking them apart systematically. The ruins that promise treasure have become a nightmare labyrinth controlled by invisible defenders. "Whoever you are," Bjorn shouts into the darkness, his voice echoing through the passages, "I offer parley. We withdraw from the ruins peacefully if you release my men unharmed. We leave this place and do not return. You have proven yourselves formidable defenders. I respect that and wish no further conflict." His offer surprises you. You expected stubborn pride, demands for surrender, threats of revenge. Instead, Bjorn shows practical wisdom. He recognizes a losing situation and seeks to extract his remaining men before losses become total. The offer is genuine, backed by the fear you hear beneath his controlled tone. You consider your options carefully. You could continue pressing the attack, potentially eliminating or capturing all of Bjorn's warriors. But that would require violence beyond what you have employed so far, and it would create blood feuds with his clan that could haunt your settlement for years. Alternatively, you could accept his offer, allowing him to withdraw with his pride partially intact and his men mostly whole. Thomas appears beside you in the darkness. "Accept his offer," he advises quietly. "We have won this confrontation completely." Further violence serves no purpose beyond revenge, and revenge is expensive luxury we cannot afford. You recognize the wisdom in Thomas's counsel. You have achieved every tactical objective. defended your sanctuary, protected your survival resources, demonstrated superiority over a more numerous enemy, and done so without killing anyone. Accepting Bjorn's offer for withdrawal consolidates these gains while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. You step into the light of a passage where Bjorn can see you. His eyes widen as he recognizes you. Erik, you live! We believed your entire expedition drowned when the ice broke. We found shelter, you respond simply. These ruins preserved us. We have learned much here and wish only to complete our recovery before returning home in spring. Release of your men in exchange for your immediate withdrawal and pledge not to return is acceptable. Bjorn studies you for a long moment, clearly processing implications. You have been living in these ruins for weeks, learning from the ancient builders? By the gods, Erik, the knowledge you must have gained. You see the calculation in his expression, the trader's instinct recognizing value beyond gold or silver. Bjorn is not simply a raider, but a chieftain who understands that knowledge can be more valuable than treasure. His next words confirm your reading. I withdraw as offered, but I propose additional terms. When you return to your settlement in spring, I ask that you visit my clan's territory. Share some of what you have learned about Arctic survival, the ancient techniques. In exchange, I offer safe passage through lands I control, trading rights, and formal peace between our peoples. This conflict need not define our clan's relationship. The offer is unexpected and generous, suggesting that Bjorn sees opportunity beyond the current confrontation. Peace between your clans would benefit both sides, opening trading routes and reducing the constant threat of raids. And sharing survival knowledge does not diminish your own possession of it. Rather, it enhances reputation and builds alliances. I accept your terms, you respond after brief consideration. Withdraw now with your men. When I return home and report to my chieftain, I will advocate for the peace you propose. If he agrees, I will visit your territory next summer to share knowledge. Bjorn nods, clearly relieved the confrontation is ending favorably. Release my men and we leave immediately. You signal to your companions. Within an hour, all of Bjorn's warriors are released, disarmed but unharmed. Their weapons returned only as they exit the ruins. The trapped men in the workshop emerge grateful to be alive. The unconscious warriors wake confused but intact. Bjorn maintains strict discipline over his men, preventing any impulse toward retaliation. As Bjorn's expedition departs the ruins, climbing back to the surface through their excavated entrance, the chieftain pauses to look back at you. You have won more than a tactical victory today, Erik. You have won my respect. I will speak of this to other clan leaders. The man who survived beneath the ice and mastered its secrets will be known throughout the north. Then he is gone, leading his men back to the surface and leaving you in control of the ancient ruins. Your companions emerge from concealment, disbelief and triumph mixing on their faces. You have faced a superior force and won through knowledge, tactics, and environmental mastery rather than raw strength. What began as desperate survival has transformed into complete victory, and the ice's hidden knowledge has proven more valuable than anyone could have imagined. The departure of Bjorn's warriors marks a turning point for your expedition. With the threat eliminated and your sanctuary secured, you can focus entirely on learning and preparation for the eventual journey home. The winter has passed its deepest point, with days slowly lengthening as the sun begins its gradual return. Spring, still weeks away, promises eventual escape from the ice and return to your settlement. You establish new routines optimized for knowledge gathering rather than tactical defense. Richard continues translating tablets at an accelerated pace, now that he understands the symbol system more completely. His translations reveal sophisticated understanding of Arctic survival that goes far beyond simple techniques. The ancient builders documented philosophical approaches to cold weather living, mental strategies for maintaining hope during dark winters, community practices that prevented conflict in close quarters, nutritional guidelines for optimizing limited food resources. Each translated tablet is copied carefully onto prepared hide, creating a portable library of survival knowledge. You realize these copies represent perhaps the most valuable cargo your expedition could bring home, worth infinitely more than trade goods or treasure. The knowledge could transform how your entire culture approaches northern living. Thomas organizes final hunting expeditions to gather maximum meat supplies for the journey home. With Bjorn's warriors gone, surface access is safe again. He leads trips that range further from the ruins, tracking migrating caribou herds that pass through the region as spring approaches. The hunts are successful beyond expectations, providing not just meat but also thick winter hides that can be sewn into additional clothing and sleeping covers. William works with Peter to test and package the most valuable items from the ruins. Not artifacts, which feel like grave robbing, but samples of the ancient builders' materials. Small amounts of the preserved oils, swatches of the superior textiles showing advanced weaving techniques, examples of the meteoritic iron tools, sealed containers with their remarkable preservation properties. These samples will allow craftspeople at your settlement to study and potentially replicate ancient techniques. John practices the ice construction methods until he can build emergency shelters efficiently. His youth makes him most adaptable to new techniques, and he embraces the role of becoming an expert in ancient building methods. Several times, he constructs full-scale practice shelters on the surface, timing himself and refining his process. By the time spring approaches, he can create a functional ice shelter for 4 people in under 30 minutes. The geothermal pool becomes a central gathering place during final weeks in the ruins. Your group bathes regularly in the warm water, a luxury almost unimaginable during typical winter expeditions. The warmth soothes tired muscles and provides psychological comfort, reminding you that not all of winter is harsh and threatening. Sometimes warmth exists, even in the coldest places, if you know where to find it. Evening gatherings by the fire take on a nostalgic quality as departure approaches. You share stories of the weeks spent beneath the ice, remarkable experiences that have bonded your group permanently. Thomas speaks of his gratitude for leadership that valued knowledge over revenge in the confrontation with Bjorn. William reflects on how the ancient ruins taught him that true wealth is wisdom rather than gold. Young John shares his transformation from uncertain boy to confident practitioner of advanced survival skills. Richard offers the most profound reflection. We entered these ruins as refugees fleeing Beth. We leave as students graduating from the finest school of Arctic survival that has ever existed. The ancient builders gave us more than shelter. They gave us education, transformation, purpose. We owe them debt that can only be repaid by sharing what we learned. The words resonate with everyone. You recognize that your expedition's story has become something larger than personal survival. It has become a bridge between ancient wisdom and present need, between past masters and future practitioners. By learning and then sharing the ancient builders' knowledge, you honor their legacy and extend their influence across time. As the final days in the ruins pass, you perform one last comprehensive exploration, saying silent farewell to chambers that preserved your lives. You visit the main chamber where you first found shelter and fire. You walk through the workshop where you learned ancient crafts. You stand beside the geothermal pool that provided water and warmth. You climb to the exit shaft that represented hope when hope seemed impossible. In the main chamber, you leave an offering to the ancient builders. Using charcoal and oil, you create a mural on a bare section of wall showing your expedition's story. 12 men breaking through ice, finding shelter in ancient ruins, learning from carved tablets, defending against enemies, and finally departing as spring returns. At the bottom of the mural, you inscribe in your own runic script a message of gratitude. To the ancient builders who saved us with their wisdom, we carry your knowledge forward. You are not forgotten. The mural will remain in the sealed chamber, possibly forever, a record of your expedition's experience. If future travelers find the ruins, they will know that the ancient builders' knowledge saved lives in your time, just as it might save lives in theirs. The departure day arrives with clear weather and lengthening daylight. You gather your companions and inventory everything being carried. Food supplies sufficient for a 3-week journey. Extra clothing constructed using ancient insulation techniques. Weapons and tools including samples of meteoritic iron. Hide copies of translated tablets containing survival knowledge. Samples of ancient materials for study. And personal items representing your experience beneath the ice. Before climbing the exit shaft for the final time, you address your expedition. We lost Henry to the ice when we first broke through. His death purchased life for the rest of us. We honor him by surviving, by learning, by bringing this knowledge home to benefit our people. When we tell our story, we begin with Henry's sacrifice. The men bow their heads in respect for their lost companion. Then, one by one, you climb the shaft and emerge into spring Arctic sunlight. The world above has transformed during your weeks below. Snow has begun melting in sunny areas. Ice shows cracks and weakening. The air, while still cold, carries hints of coming warmth. Spring is arriving, and with it, your opportunity for safe travel home. The journey home takes 3 weeks, just as you estimated. But it is nothing like the desperate outbound journey when your expedition was lost and hunted. You travel with confidence, using ice construction techniques to build perfect shelters each night. You hunt successfully, using ancient stone weapons and tracking methods learned from tablets. You navigate precisely, using sun angle observations and snow pattern reading. You manage food and energy expenditure according to ancient nutritional guidelines. Everything you learned beneath the ice translates directly to surface survival. The ancient builders created knowledge systems that work anywhere in Arctic conditions, not just in sealed chambers. Your expedition becomes a traveling demonstration of advanced survival techniques, and the contrast with your earlier struggles is striking. You encounter other travelers occasionally, and word of your survival spreads quickly through the region. Stories circulate about the expedition that disappeared beneath the ice and emerged months later, healthy and strong, bearing advanced knowledge. By the time you reach your settlement, your return is anticipated as a momentous event. Your chieftain greets you personally, relief and curiosity mixing on his weathered face. "Erik, we mourned you as dead. The winter has been hard, and losing your expedition seemed an ill omen. But you return. How?" You gesture to your companions and the knowledge they carry. "We found shelter in the most unlikely place. Ancient ruins beneath the ice, left by the builders who lived here before our people arrived. They preserved survival knowledge in forms we could learn and use. That knowledge saved us, and now we bring it home to benefit our entire settlement." Over the following days, you present your discoveries to the settlement. Richard shares translated tablets explaining ancient techniques. John demonstrates ice construction, building a shelter in the settlement center that amazes onlookers. William displays material samples, sparking immediate interest among craftspeople. Thomas describes tactical applications of ancient knowledge, impressing warriors with accounts of defeating Bjorn's superior force. But most importantly, you present the philosophical core of ancient wisdom. Survival in harsh environments requires knowledge, cooperation, and adaptation rather than raw strength or stubborn resistance. The ancient builders thrived by working with their environment rather than fighting against it. By learning from ice instead of fearing it, they created sustainable systems that supported communities for generations. Your chieftain listens carefully to presentations and examines evidence. When all information has been shared, he makes a pronouncement that will shape your settlement's future. This knowledge Erik's expedition has brought home is more valuable than any trade goods. We will establish a dedicated group of knowledge keepers to study, practice, and teach ancient techniques. Erik will lead this group, transforming from trader to teacher. Our children will learn what the ancient builders knew, ensuring this wisdom is not lost again. The pronouncement elevates your status within the settlement while also giving you purpose that extends beyond individual expeditions. You become the bridge between ancient wisdom and present application, the keeper of knowledge that has already saved lives and will certainly save more in the future. In the months following your return, the knowledge begins transforming settlement life. Ice construction techniques provide emergency shelter options during unexpected storms. Advanced insulation methods improve clothing and housing. Food preservation using ancient container designs extends supplies through lean periods. Geothermal heat sources are located and utilized following ancient surveying methods. Every aspect of Arctic survival improves through application of rediscovered knowledge. News of your discoveries spreads to other settlements and clans. Visitors come to learn ancient techniques. Some are skeptical initially, dismissing old knowledge as inferior to current practices. But demonstrations quickly convert skeptics. When John builds an ice shelter that proves warmer and more stable than traditional constructions, criticism becomes curiosity. When textiles woven using ancient methods prove more durable than modern equivalents, resistance becomes eagerness to learn. True to his word, Bjorn visits the following summer to propose formal peace between your clans. The chieftains negotiate treaty terms while you and Bjorn speak privately about your time in the ruins. He admits that the experience humbled him, showing that cleverness and knowledge could defeat numbers and strength. He has returned to his own territory with new respect for strategic thinking and environmental mastery. "Will you honor your promise to share knowledge with my clan?" he asks directly. You nod. Knowledge grows when shared, diminishes when hoarded. The ancient builders left their wisdom for whoever needed it, not for exclusive possession. I will visit your territory and teach what I can, just as I have taught here. The teaching visit to Bjorn's clan opens unexpected opportunities. His people are eager students, and several of his hunters prove talented at advanced techniques. Cross-cultural exchange benefits both groups, with Bjorn's clan sharing their own specialized knowledge about hunting and navigation in exchange for ancient survival wisdom. The peace between clans strengthens into alliance, creating trading partnerships and mutual defense agreements. Years pass, and the knowledge continues spreading. You train multiple generations of students in ancient techniques. The ruins beneath the ice become a destination for pilgrimage, with small groups making carefully supervised visits to study the carved tablets and experience the chambers that preserved your life. The site gains sacred status, protected by both clans as a shared cultural treasure. Richard pursues scholarly work, creating comprehensive written records of ancient knowledge in your culture's runic script. His documentation ensures that even if the ruins are eventually destroyed or become inaccessible, the wisdom they contained will survive. His writings are copied and distributed to settlements throughout the region, spreading knowledge far beyond your immediate community. Young John becomes the most accomplished practitioner of ice construction techniques, eventually developing his own innovations that build on ancient foundations. He teaches apprentices who teach their own students, creating a lineage of knowledge that extends forward through time just as it extended backward from the ancient builders. Thomas transitions from expeditionary veteran to tactical instructor, teaching warriors how to use terrain and environment as weapons. His lessons, grounded in the experience of defending the ruins against Bjorn's warriors, reshape combat training throughout the region. Future generations benefit from his insights about fighting smarter rather than harder. William establishes himself as a trader who values knowledge and technique over simple goods. His trading network becomes a distribution system for advanced methods, spreading survival wisdom to distant settlements that might never visit the ruins directly. He becomes wealthy not through hoarding, but through facilitating exchange of valuable knowledge. But you, Erik, find your greatest satisfaction in something simpler. Each winter, when the ice thickens and the darkness settles over the land, you gather the settlement's young people and tell them the story. The story of how your expedition was surrounded by enemies, broke through the ice in desperation, and discovered what the ancient builders had hidden there. Not treasure, not gold, but something infinitely more valuable. Knowledge that transforms fear into confidence, ignorance into expertise, struggle into mastery. You tell them about Henry, the young man who died so that others might find the passage to safety. You tell them about the days of learning in chambers beneath the ice, about the warmth of the geothermal pool, about the precision of ancient stone craftsmanship. You tell them about confronting Bjorn's warriors using terrain and tactics instead of violence. You tell them about the journey home, applying ancient wisdom to modern survival challenges. And you tell them the most important lesson the ice taught you, that knowledge, preserved with care and shared with generosity, is the ultimate survival tool. It cannot be stolen, cannot be depleted, cannot be destroyed as long as people remember and practice it. The ancient builders understood this. They created not monuments to their own glory, but schools for future survivors. They knew that true immortality comes not from being remembered, but from being useful across generations. Now, decades after your desperate plunge through breaking ice, you understand that you were never truly surrounded by enemies in that moment. You were surrounded by opportunity. The crisis that seemed likely to kill you instead led you to wisdom that has saved countless lives. The ice that seemed to imprison you actually freed you from ignorance. The ancient chambers that felt like tombs were actually wombs, birthing new understanding from old knowledge. The ancient builders left their gift hidden beneath the ice, waiting for people desperate enough to search for it, humble enough to learn from it, and generous enough to share it. Your expedition found that gift, learned those lessons, and carried that wisdom forward. And in doing so, you became part of the same tradition of knowledge preservation that has sustained human survival in impossible conditions since the first people ventured into the frozen north. The ice keeps its secrets until the moment someone needs them desperately enough to look beyond fear and see possibility. You looked, you found, you learned, you shared. The ancient builders would be proud of such students. And the knowledge continues spreading. Ice lesson carried forward through time by people who understand that survival wisdom is the most precious heritage any culture can possess. If you enjoyed this story of survival, ancient wisdom, and the power of knowledge to transform crisis into opportunity, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of exploration, resilience, and the timeless lessons hidden in history's forgotten places. Thank you for listening, and may you always find warmth even in the coldest darkness.